Hi, and welcome to
Oh,
the Walk With Me podcast. I'm your host, Marie-Eve Bédard, and today I have a very special guest. I have Marc Raper with me. Hello, Marc.
hi. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, and you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. It's been such a long time, actually. We've been, back and forth planning this time together, but we haven't touched base together in a little while. I know that you are more appraise of what's going on in my life just because you get news through my newsletter
Yeah,
and stuff like that. But I know that you recently retired. It was like a
correct.
long process that you sell your practice and then you were retiring. And then a whole bunch of things happened since you retired. You traveled, you actually
Yeah,
dove
we
into
bought a
so
new
many different.
house.
You what?
We bought a new house.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. That's our
that's
first time owning a house together. So that was
okay.
quite nice.
Nice. So this is where you are basically.
Correct.
Okay,
I'm sitting in
perfect.
my new office.
Nice. So
Yeah,
I wanted us to have this conversation together because I know that, there's a lot of things that we have in common in the way that we see the world, and we are very much connected through that like golden thread that actually like is, that motor of our work, of our being, of connecting with people. And I also wanted to have this conversation because you've of the very few people that have known my mom like firsthand as well. And our loss has been like such a driver of like my entire work. And also you have experienced yourself like a lot of loss. And of all the people that I know, there are very few that have lived, navigated, transformed their grief and the grief process in a way that is outside of the mainstream way of what we are told grieving should look like, managing our loss should look like. And so thank you so much for coming here. Thank you so much for
thank you.
being with me. The
Well,
other
thank
thing
you
that
for.
I wanted to say was that so you are retired now, but you had your dentistry practice for like a long time, and just a practice that you had, the concept of having a gallery within with the practice, like it was already outside the box. It's like you are somebody that loves to find creative ways to connect with people, to touch people, to bring not just art and beauty, but also what it means truly to be human. Like,
Oh, thank you.
and I was, we met through because you went out with my cousin for quite a few years. We stayed connected afterwards, obviously, and you helped me like with, and this is where I think that sometimes people forget that we are all agent of being of service, but in a very human way. And I think that in our work, in our regular work, it's actually easy to forget that we impact people so much more than in the actual work that we're trained in. And by that I mean I was, before I actually started to go to your practice, I was like really like that was my biggest fear. I had like a fear of dentists, and there's a lot of fear that I've had in my life, but that one was a big one. And
I
you've
can
helped.
recall that.
Yeah, and you've helped me like so much through that. And I remember like sometimes like we were connected, I was on the chair. You remember like, okay, like we're gonna do this. Are you ready? And I was like, hold on, let me find my center. And you would just hold space for me to find my center. That few seconds was so life changing for me, especially in back then the work that I was doing. It was part of like that spider web of moving pieces that we actually, when we start this personal development journey or healing journey, that was small and yet so big. So I wanted to say here, first of all, Mark, thank you for being that person.
Oh,
And second of all, for the listeners or the watchers, our work goes so much more beyond the actual mechanical work. Especially when we work with people, right? Like there's so much more impact by these microseconds, by holding those spaces for people to just come to themselves before we force them or before we actually go forward into whatever we're there to do. And in whatever the medical world, I talk about that a lot, like in the medical world, there's so much work to be done in the older generation, but I see that there's some change in like bringing more compassionate practices in the new generation, and it brings me so much hope because I see what it looks like in practice, and also because I know what it looks like when it's not there. So I wanted to open this conversation with you because whether we're friends or not, the dentist part, that identity of you and how you actually like brought your work into this world really changed it really changed me. It really changed the way that I relate, just not just going to the dentist, but like owning our spaces and being the leader in our health and wellness, right? Like it's all that conversation also that I keep on going back to. And so I wanted to really publicly say thank you
wow.
so much for this.
Well, thank you. I have to say that it's wonderful to hear that I had that impact because we're here today talking a bit about loss, and loss can be loss of a family member or loss of experiences. But I just retired, and which is kind of a loss for me, a change that happened because of my problem with my neck and needing to take care of myself. And so there is this moment of grieving the profession at the moment that I'm going through, and having you express that impact that I had on you, and I know that I had that impact on some other patients as well, having heard their stories. And I really appreciate that you took the time to express that to me, and having and to see me, just to recognize that that's something that I was doing, and in some ways I wasn't trying to do it, but it's just part of my practice. I think I was lucky enough to have a unique practice that allowed me to uh, place more compassion into my work.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it is we often talk about the obvious losses, right? Like there's very little space in our society that is given to loss and grief. And when we're talking, and that's one of my mission on this earth is to bring grief literacy to all of us, so we can reduce so much of the suffering and connect deeper with people when we are aware of of all of these losses, because it means that there's more losses than we realize, which also means that we have navigated through so much losses. And in
Hmm.
some ways, we are reminded that, oh, hold on a second, like I'm so much stronger than I think that I am. I have so much more capacity than I think that I am. And when we think about hope, I always thought grief is not an emotion, it's actually a process. Hope is also a process. Hope is not a feeling emotion thing. Like I'm hopeful for some people, but like hope is there's a goal, there's a path to the goal, and there's me that has that identity of capacity that I can get there. And in grief specifically, when we lose that goal, that end goal, right? Obviously, there's no path because we're like, well, or if we have that goal that is like different from what we have set on, or when there's life changes, like, you've retired, there's another meaning to your life, there's another lifestyle, there's another rhythm to it. Am I able to do this? Like whether it is moving to Germany or whatever, like, do I have that identity to actually create that when I have not the experience beforehand? But it's like, but I have had the experience of other losses. I
Yeah.
am so much more capable of doing this, not just like doing it, but like kicking ass at doing
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, your success rate, if you're here today, is 100%. So I always like that expression and that idea
Yeah,
that we have survived and we can survive a lot more than we believe that we can. And that's, I think, my experience over the years has shown me that I have more power and more strength than I ever thought that I did.
love this. Love this.
Yeah.
The how is it going? Like, right, because you mentioned we're gonna start with that one. Retirement is a big, big piece. Like, it's a really big piece because it changes. Like, it brings so much of our day to day life all the way to retirement is that identity of the working person. It rhythms it actually is the tempo of like every day. Like, yes, we go on vacation or whatever, but like it is very, very big. And I would love I'm always curious because it's a very big change. And I'm always curious, especially in the first few weeks, which is that right now for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is that movement going? How is that transition going for you? What did you plan for that transition? What have you
Mhm.
done so far to
Interesting because everybody would come to me at the clinic and they would say, ask me, what is your plan? What are you going to do? You have to have a plan. And I didn't have a plan and it was stressing me out because I thought, wow, I don't have a plan. That could be dangerous. You hear about these people who retire and then after a few months they pass away because they feel useless and life just happens in that way and then they go. And it was stressing me a lot. And I realized one day I don't need to have a plan necessarily. And I decided, I think it was one patient or someone I spoke with had said, um, take time in the beginning just to feel the retirement and to feel the separation. And on one hand, I was super lucky because my transition happened gradually. So it wasn't like a night and day. I stopped working. I had stopped working 2 days a week and then 3 days a week. And then recently, just on March 28th, I did the final retirement uh, time. So I was lucky enough to have the transition. But interestingly, and I've heard this from a lot of people who are retired, is we think it's going to be empty and boring, but I found that my time, I have no time. I don't know where the time goes because I do a lot in a day, and I realize, oh wow, it's already like 5 o'clock, and Simon's going to be home, and then making dinner, and so. But I'm very busy, I guess, with the new house. We've had a lot of different projects to take care of with the house. And for me, I think I love to travel, so I've been doing a lot of traveling and filling the time with that. I also started to do more self care. So I got back to doing yoga. I did an interesting thing the week that I retired. I went for a retreat in Costa Rica for meditation. We did plant medicine. So I thought it would be a good kind of transition thing. Like you said, non-conventional for me seems to come up pretty often, and that was my non-conventional step into retirement was to do this big retreat. So that's my retreat story,
love it,
retirement
love it.
story.
There's more and more. I have somebody else that I know that recently retired and he actually decided to go on a trip to kind of like not just like I'm working and then I'm going back to, like I'm at home, but like he actually packed his bag and went for 2 weeks to travel on his own with his camera and with his thought and just to kind of like have that change of scenery and at the same time that spaciousness that is allowing him and allowing us to feel what we need to feel.
Yeah, and I think that's been a common. Now that when you said that, it kind of came back to me. There was another time when I had another loss. It was a loss of my relationship with Jean, a partner of mine that I had in Vancouver for many years prior to dating your cousin. And there was a moment that the part of the camera was interesting because there was a moment where I actually took a one of those box cameras that you buy at the pharmacy back in the 90s or 2000s. And I took camera and I pointed at myself and I took a picture as I was taking it. I thought, this is the moment you're changing your life. And I have that picture that I have carried with me ever since. And it really was a moment where I said, okay, I'm making a change. I'm going to transform this loss into a new beginning. And that's when I made the decision to move to England, and I ended up moving here. I wouldn't be here. We would never have had that not taken place. It's crazy how you can have loss, and in the moment, you don't see it necessarily as a positive. I don't want to belittle anyone's loss by saying that, but I think loss can be a conduit to transformation. And I think that it depends on if you have um, the, and all of us listening to this have the skill, because we've all passed through periods of loss of different levels, and we've had a 100% success rate sitting here today. And so that if we can take that uh, idea and transform the loss into something positive, I think that's a really good way to deal with it. One of the good ways. There's many, many good ways to deal with loss.
Well, there's no perfect way, there's just our way, right? Like it's really
Uh,
it's about finding our own language and ways of moving within and without, right?
Yeah.
That helps us in the moment to actually like make a transition and move forward, not move on. There's always this,
Hmm.
am I moving
Yeah.
on or am I moving forward? The world wants us to move on, but
Yeah.
the I think the more realistic and the more holistic way of looking at when we navigate loss is to we're moving forward with everything that we have lived, like, and you're talking about Jean, that was actually like you took a picture, and I love those moments where we kind of like, whether it's in our mind or we physically like take a picture of this is, that this is a turning point in your life, and you want to remember that because it's a landmark of like you are not the same before and after. There was like this decision that we take to move forward, honoring everything that we have lived up until now. And
Hmm.
I think that it's interesting specifically that you're mentioning Jean, because eventually Jean moved to Montreal. You actually
Yeah.
worked together. He was
Yeah.
the one handling the gallery, and you've lost him at some point in your relationship back then,
Yeah.
and then you ended up losing him
Losing
again,
again.
right? Because Jean
Yeah.
passed away at a very
Passed away.
young age. Yes, at a very young
Yeah.
age, and you want to talk about that?
Sure. Sure. Um, it is another one of those experiences where I have taken and turned into something good. I think I think I learned so many lessons from Jean. So the all I can do is be grateful for his existence in my life. And for sure, in the beginning, the loss of the relationship caused me a lot of pain in the when we broke up, because he was my first love, and I had like a Disneyland idea of what that relationship was, that it would go on forever, and when it didn't, it was absolutely devastating for me. It took me some time to kind of um, re reevaluate how I saw love, and I of course, like most people who end a relationship, we think we'll never love again, never love again, and for some people that could be true, but for me, I was able to learn that I could still love. I believe that for me personally, when I've loved someone, I never can stop loving them, because they're just part of who I've become, and they're part of me. And so I was able to transition our love into a friendship with time. And then when he passed away, finally, it was very difficult. But we had gone through a kind of a transitioning of our lives. And there was a point where I felt that I needed to have a separation. So we had a nice separation of ourselves prior to him passing, which made the passing a little bit easier, I think. and but I still have conversations with Sean in my mind, and like I do with all the people who have passed in my life. I tend to keep them alive through my memories and trying to. Uh, I see this, don't see them, but I feel their presence in most of the people that have passed that I know. So I'm open to that concept. I think when you're open to it, you're more likely to see it or feel it, which for me, but I'm a very sensitive, energetically sensitive person, I think.
This
Yeah.
is where I was actually talking, like that's what I was referring to, like that golden thread that like for me, I've lost a lot of people as well in my life, and for me those the physical relationship ends, but the relationship doesn't. It just transforms into
Mm-hmm.
whatever the F we want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, some people are saying, well, isn't that like some sort of denial? Isn't that some sort of but I really truly feel that we are linked way beyond our physical forms, that there's a part of that either we can envision that that person has had an impact so deeply on ourselves that it's the person is integrated in our mosaic of
Yeah,
our own life, right? So
I
it continues
exactly
to
feel that.
live inside ourselves, or it can even be that, well, I'm still linked on some sort of level to that person beyond the physical manifestation of our time together or relationship or their physical manifestation, that I can continue to nourish and move with. And when I talk about this to people, there's not a lot of people that I actually first talk about this, and second that have this perspective on loss, and people that we have evolved and have had relationship with. But at the same time, like, I think that whether it's for us or not, that's not the point. The point is that there is this possibility that if you feel like this is aligned with you, then by all means, so be it, right? Like that's what you were basically
Yeah,
saying. Like it's for me, but who knows if it's for other people. But I think that we need
right.
to talk about this, right? Like I need to.
Just curious, do you ever feel your presence of your mom, or is that something you're comfortable to talk about?
I The interesting part about um when mom passed away, like that, I've lost like a lot of people before, like it was like whether it was friends or that were that were shot or that committed suicide, or like family members, like at different points in my life. But there was no like, and I was linked to all of them. My mother and I kind of had this almost symbiosis relationship together. Like we were so close for many reasons throughout my life, like my that when she passed away, it really felt when somebody passes away, it's not just like we're losing that person, it's also like who we are with that person, right? Like we're
Okay.
also mourning that part of ourselves, like those memories, like this I am, because we're all different. The relationship that I have with you is the different than the relationship that I have with the other person, but that other person, the relationship that they have with you is different than our relationship. So we all have these threads, right? And when my mom passed away, I felt like it wasn't even like a part of me. I felt like it was like almost all of me. Like it was an impact that was so big that I was like, I don't even know who I am outside of this relationship,
Okay.
even if I was somebody, like I was, 27, 28 years old. But our relationship was so together since I came into this world for many reasons. And I know that it was also for her, like we've had at the end of so many conversations where she was like, who is going to take care of you? Like, and I was like, I'll take
Mm-hmm.
care of myself. But it was this, I think that on some level, my mom was my soulmate in some ways. Like I just lost more than the mom, I think. So when
You
she
know what?
wasn't.
So,
Yeah.
sorry, it's funny because I've always felt connected to the story of you and your mom. I think I felt on some level the depth of your loss because there's not a lot of people that I will message on the day that their mom passed or their birthday. And I don't know why, but it always seems to arise in my life. And I suddenly see it or remember it on the day. And then we've reached out before, but it's just, I know what a loss I was. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty. And you were mentioning something about
I'm sorry to interrupt.
the rearrangement between you and Jean, like when you rearrange your relationship. I think that because there's always this question that people ask me, like, there's always this question that people say, is it better if the person leaves suddenly, or if is it better if the person leaves after like a long illness? And it's like, I don't think that one is better than the other. Like it's just different, right? But through the process of her going through the cancer and all the therapy and everything that has happened, um I definitely feel like it was better for me because it kind of like builded this separation between her and I, right? Like this that I was with her like really really close, like. And even when, the entire time my dad kind of he always felt outside. I have, my dad was always an outsider in our relationship, even if I'm very close to my dad. And so much so that when she got sick, he was still an outsider. He was still a satellite outside of us two, like kind of like figuring this out. And when in October, like when she was before the cancer came back, in October, when I left for the Maldives, I left for 2 months. I came back when the cancer came back. But that 2 month allowed my dad and my mom to actually like be together, and my dad to have his place next to her. So it was
Nice.
it was very beautiful to see when I came back that that there was more spaciousness between, which may or may not have made the transition and the loss easier. But when she left, I was just, I don't know who I am. And I felt, and it's funny because I'm in the gift today. I was sharing something on this because I'm leading the gift experience right now. And I was sharing something on this where when she left, it left like this black hole within myself that like was absorbing everything. Like everything kind of like disappeared in that hole. And it was kind of my void, and I was just like living it with my void. And in my biology mind, nature doesn't know void. Nature doesn't happen in nature. Some things are actually like going in. And my mom was a very big gardener, and I remember, like you were saying, like that photograph, I remember there was a moment where I was like, okay, I'm taking the decision here. If nature is going to take its course, like, psychologically with my psyche within myself and emotionally, anyways, to fill that void through, all kinds of behaviors and, then I'm going to decide what do I build from there.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's when I started to work on what I later on spiritually realized that it was my inner cathedral. It was my inner sanctum. It was like kind of like an altar that I kept alive and kept on taking care of, that was beyond the grave relationship that I had with her. And throughout the years, I had so many conversations that I thought was with her. This is actually a very interesting thing.
Mm.
I thought I was having conversation I still have conversation with her, but there was some conversation that I'd had with her. And I've realized over the years that it wasn't so much the conversation that I was having with her, but it was a conversation that I was having with the feminine lineage of my ancestral. Like that, it was kind of like I was having these conversations with her, but at the same time, when I was asking for guidance, wisdom, connecting to the higher universe, whatever, it was kind of like I was talking to her, but as a
Collective whole.
collective whole of women that came before me, which to one extent could be like, the collective consciousness, right? But like it was kind of like
Yeah.
this, yeah.
That is so cool because when I went to Rhythmia, which was the retreat center that I did my plant medicine, one of the nights was called Ladies' Night, and they was a different type of ayahuasca, and it was run by female shamans. And it was a beautiful, beautiful night. And for me, for that night, my intention was to try to figure out the connection or the lack of connection I had felt with the loss of my mom, that I had felt more with the loss of my sister, and I could never figure out why was one loss feeling more devastating. Uh, I used to chalk it up to the fact that my mother had been sick for so many years, like for 10 or more years with her COPD. And every time as a person that lived away from home, every time I went home, I felt like I grieved the loss of her each time I left because we were saying goodbye and it could be goodbye for the last time. And I just figured it was part of the process and that it was softer. If you're talking about is a fast loss better than a slow loss. And sometimes I feel like this slow losses like you experienced allow us time to grieve. But on this particular night, I had always seen my mom as weak because in my mind, she was afraid to die, and I thought that was strange for a very quiet woman, a woman who had strong beliefs that she would be afraid to pass away. And during the ayahuasca session, I was really in touch with the female ancestry. It's so funny that you say that because I really had this sense of the divine feminine being present with me and showing me all the women in my life were warrior women. And I was a descendant of these powerful warrior women that gave me life. And the message that came across to me is that my mom wasn't weak and afraid. It was that she loved life so intensely that she didn't want to stop living, which was a complete kind of reversal for me. Instead of seeing it as a fear of dying, it was a desire to continue to live. And there's a story that my dad and my sisters tell me about how horrible her death was because she was holding on to every second of life. And the image of her changed for me into this woman struggling and holding to life for every second for us to see how important the idea of living was. And so it just had this, I have goosebumps.
I do, and I'm super emotional right now.
Yeah, it was absolutely a change in the way I see her 100% now. So I see this woman, apparently she was bleeding and it's a very ugly image. My sister said, "You're lucky you weren't here for that moment." But she was just struggling to grab every second of life. I thought, what a what a slap in the face I had been giving her by disrespecting her memory by thinking she was afraid because she actually fought for every breath. She walked around with an oxygen tube. She had stopped seeing a while before. Her hearing was bad. And I used to ask her sometimes, like, why do you want to live? Like, what keeps you going? Like, what is there to live for? And she just said, I love my family and I just want to be here. And so it just completely changed it for me. And I was able to finally grieve her properly. So that was
How
quite
many how many years after she passed away?
maybe, I think 7 now. Yeah. And it took me so long. I was just always, it was like a void, like you said, a void. It was this emptiness when I would think about her loss, and I felt guilty about it because I thought, wow, um, I don't know how, like, my sister Lori, when she passed away, her presence was always there. It was a nice feeling when I would think about her, but with my mom, I just was carrying the wrong idea, I think. And this
The
moment of,
perspective.
yeah, the
Yeah.
perspective was off. And then this moment of female ancestry, it was almost like they woke me up and said, okay, here's the real story. You want to hear the real story? And it was so wonderful. So it's changed my whole experience with the passing of my mom. That was just 2 months ago.
2 months ago. I remember that I saw that actually is the I've been wanted to invite you on the podcast for a long time, but that was actually the post that said like, "Okay, like I'm not postponing this to later. I'm actually I'm going in there." And you're bringing a piece that is such an incredible piece because with my mom, we were having my mom kept on saying, "I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not afraid of death." And yet a few days before she passed away, she kept on saying, "Why me? Why if, 90% of women are getting out of this alive, why is it me?" And it took me a little while for me to actually, like, really catch
Mhm.
up on the fact that fear of death and not wanting to stop to live was 2 different things. And when we I'm in training for death midwifery, and for me, it's always been about I'm a biologist as well, like nature's cycles and everything. And we have this construct of like the death midwife that is at like on the dying bed basically. But to be a death midwife is actually to be a life midwife first. Like it's really about
Mhm.
life to its fullest before we actually like and or concomitantly at the same time
Yeah.
then we're talking about like the ends of, but it's really this intricate dance between the life and death. And when we realize what you just said, that the fear of death and not wanting to stop living is 2 different things, then it opens up like so much spaciousness because we thought that this was together, right? And
Mhm.
right now for the listeners, I'm actually just clasping my hands together like in a prayer form. But like when we actually realize that perspective, it's not so much like, yes, we've changed a perspective, but we've opened up and we've realized that there was so much spaciousness between the two. So what does it mean for that perspective that we have on the person that we love? And then we revisit our grief and our mourning in a very different way, right? So I just love that you
Yeah.
said it happened 7 years after, and I felt like I was finally properly, grieving for her loss. That kept on feeling very. I always have this like I'm not like beam me up, Scotty. Like I'm not quite yet to
Yeah. Right on.
rematerialize.
Having
But it's this feeling of like something is off, like there's this spaciousness that I'm not seeing, but I'm feeling it, right? Like there's this. So I just love that you're sharing this because it is life changing as well to see that end of life kind of like duality within the unity of what it is to mean to die, right? You talked about Lori. Lori is your sister that passed away quite a while, right, ago?
Yeah. Yes. She's like it was 10 years this year.
10 years this year.
Yeah.
You recently, because it was 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yes. It was, yeah,
On the 22nd of July.
22nd of July.
We it's funny because we 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 don't celebrate the day that she passed, and my partner often says to me, "Why do you celebrate? What is your family always celebrate the day the person died?" And I don't think it's that we're celebrating the day they died. We're celebrating, again, the perspective. We're celebrating the life that they were, and it happens to fall on that day that we had to transition to a new way of experiencing them. So,
Mm,
so yeah, it was 10 years goes by, and I still feel her presence. I think you probably saw my post about that, or maybe not. But I felt compelled to share on that date um, that she's still present to me, and I still feel her uh, on a daily basis. Still talk with her. There's this cool little St. Christopher's medal that she gave me, and when she gave it to me, I thought, oh, I'm not religious, so thank you, but I don't know what to do with this. Like, I appreciated it, but I just ended up hanging it in my car on the rear view mirror, and I thought I'll put it there. But that's become such a touchstone, so to speak. I'll be driving and suddenly it will start moving, and I'm like, "Hey, girl!" I grab the metal between my fingers. I'm like, "I hear you. I'm going to slow down, or whatever. Thank you for being here." Some days when I was going to work near the end and I was having pain, or it was getting hard for the separation of work coming and the retirement or whatever, I would ask her for strength, like, give me strength today. Let me be the warrior that you are. She was always this powerful force of life as well. I've been lucky to have these wonderful, amazing, strong women in my life, and I always borrow her life energy to get through difficult moments. So, yeah,
Hmm. I love this.
yeah, yeah.
I
And
love this.
she had. I like to tell this story because I think it's so interesting that it happened this way. But she was a woman who had cancer, like your mom, and she had suffered a lot. She went through all the surgeries, tried to do everything she could to live as long as possible for her children, and she was in her last days, and I was home to be with her, and it was my turn to take her to the bathroom to have a cigarette. It was one of the only joys that she still had left. It was smoking. She had quit smoking, and then when she found out that she was in the terminal phase, she was like, screw it, I'm going to smoke. So we each would take her to the bathroom, and this time it was my turn to take her to the bathroom. And she liked to go there because it was a fan, and she didn't want the smoke to contaminate her children. Or so we would go in the bathroom to do it. And it was a big ordeal, and she was like basically skin and bones, and it was really hard for her to get there, but it was her highlight of her day, kind of thing. And we were sitting in there, and I asked her. Um, well, she had basically been stripped of everything at this point in her life that an ego would consider to be important. She had lost all her beauty. She had lost all her strength. She was about to lose her life, and everything had been taken from her. And we were sitting in the bathroom, and she looked suddenly with a brilliant look on her face of knowing all. Kind of, I would say it was like an aha moment. And she said, "I get it. I get it." And I said, what do you get?" And she said, "It's just about love. It's all about love." And it was just out of nowhere, this beautiful moment of realization that all that mattered was love. And she had a difficult relationship with her mother-in-law. Um, she wasn't the same nationality as her husband, and that was posed a problem in the family. And for years, they just never spoke. And that night, she decided to gather the entire her inner circle together at the house, and she just wanted to let everyone know that she loved them and forgave everybody for anything that there might still be on the table that she's not aware of or anything. And um, her legacy has become that story of it's just all about love, and that's how I try to live my life now to always lead with love. Often we'll like think of and I think I said this in her. I said that you had kind of alluded to this, the people who have passed are in us, and all the impact they have lives through us. And so now when I do something um, with question in my mind, and I think, like, I wish I had her advice or whatever, all I have to do is think, are you coming from a place of love? And that is how I get my answers. I try to lead always with love. So, yeah, and I like to tell the story because I think it's part of her legacy, and I think it's touched a lot of people, and I feel always like it's my duty to share it. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to
Well,
share.
thank you for sharing it actually, because it is a beautiful story, and I just love those end of life clarity moment, and it's always about
Hmm.
love. the end of life clarity
Uh-huh.
moments are always about love, which is the first thing
Mm,
that we forget. So when you say, every time I want to have guidance, I actually just go back to that part that is connected forever to her, and I find my answer because, is it coming from a place of love? I just love this, and there is a part of moving forward. I think that in a lot of our grieving process that is, well, if I'm not doing it for me right now, I'm gonna do it for them. So it's kind of like
mhm,
living the life by
mhm,
proxy because
mm,
they love life so much. So you're kind of saying like, I'm gonna continue to live and do stuff, carrying. And when I say carrying, it's like bringing them with me along as if they were there with me,
yeah,
sharing those moments
yeah,
and moving forward. And then we kind of find our way back to ourselves and back to our to love basically as well. So thank you so much for this powerful story because it always boils down to that, and I always like my North Star is basically compassionate love, like radical compassion, like really always going back to like we all have these emotions. And I was while I was preparing this podcast episode, it's like no matter how much we think that the personal development, spiritual development, whatever, like there's an end. There's actually like another side where we don't feel this. We don't feel those like
mhm,
human
yeah,
moments, right? And then we figured
mhm,
out how come why am I still like with this, but like we're human. Like it doesn't matter how much we've done this work. At the end of the day, we're still human. We're still in this body. We're still in this manifestation. And yes, being human is hard. And at the same time, what a wonderful gift it is because of this mortality, because of this finite time that we
mhm,
have together, because we don't know when the last of us is going to be. So can we please cut the BS and get to the point, right? Like
mhm,
it's always
yeah,
this like beautiful like frustration, and then you're like, hold on a second, like I'm just gonna take a step back, reconnect to that inner wisdom, and then say, oh, okay, hold on a second. Well, that is the point. That is the
yeah,
point. The point is
yeah,
not the annihilation. The point is to actually like have this constant reminder of this human experience which allows us to experience the love that we actually experience with our lost ones. So I just love that she had this moment of clarity and that she decided to do something with that moment of clarity because
yeah,
forgiveness is always a big piece when people leave. There's so much work that can be done after the person is gone for forgiveness, for like, getting closure on a lot of things. But at the same time, if you can give that wonderful gift, like, because it was not just like that moment of clarity that she gave to you, it was also that beautiful gift that she gave to all of the people around
yeah.
her before leaving. So,
It was a really cool experience,
wow,
actually. Yeah, yeah.
beautiful,
And
beautiful.
I want to tell you that I'm so happy to see how you've taken your grief and turned it into this, what you're doing today. I think it's so cool that how you transformed your losses into something that is helping others. Really, really
Thank
wonderful
you.
to see.
It's really interesting because I always say, I have conversation with people and I always say I didn't get on this path because I wanted to help people.
Uh-huh.
I always say that, when I started this path, when I started this journey, it was really to diminish the pain. It was really, and when I say diminish the pain, it was at first it was to get rid of the pain, to numb the pain, to make it go away, to like all of that. And then I tried a whole bunch of stuff that didn't work because time does not heal. Time
Yeah.
buries. If you actually, it does, it just, it just keeps in the corner. So So when I realized that part where like, okay, I have to deal with this, right? And I started to do the work, I found myself so damn alone in the process, in the way that I was seeing things, which was, we're talking about non-conventional. I'm a non-conventional person as well. Like, so despite the fact that I have always been an unconventional person, I felt even more alone in the process. So to really connect with other people that are feeling alone and they're saying, hold on a second, there's other people that I can have these conversations with where I don't feel judged, where I don't feel like they're trying to fix or to, dismiss. And it's all behaviors that is not, it's not deliberate. It's just that people are actually uncomfortable with their own feelings,
Yeah.
discomforts, right? So for me, it was really that process of yes, service of other people, but at the same time, that's how I actually found our healing. And by talking with healers, we are social beings. We heal through connection,
Mm-hmm.
true connection in love, connection in truth, connection in what matters the most. So then we can really start to heal because we can get rid of the guilt. We can, overcome the shame, all of these feelings that are deemed negative, but they're just carrying messages. Like what is my anger? And for me, anger was the emotion that I struggle with the most in my entire life, and especially in grief. And so it was like, how do I connect with people not through that anger? like
Yeah.
like not to that, like, I know that that love it is, but I felt this anger overtaking me. So that's when I actually started to do this work and to do this work. And to be frank, the place that I feel the most at home is when I'm with my group of women that I'm spending 3 years with. Those behind closed doors where we talk about grief and of life and the beauty, and like we have these like beautiful conversations where anything is open. There's no walls, there's just authenticity, there's just being with each other, there's just seeing each other, listening to each other. And that for me is like, it took me 15 years to truly find this. Not, and I say to my husband, it's not normal, and I'm
Mm.
air quoting here, but
Yeah.
we shouldn't be training to be a dead midwife to finally grieve the way that we actually want to grieve, to
Yeah.
finally have the spaciousness and the place and the containers to do so. So that's why I'm saying, like, I'm on a mission of reconnecting with that divine feminine, because when we're talking about divine feminine, the birthing, when we talk about midwifery, the birthing and the end of life, all of these mushy things, for centuries, for millennia, it was actually the divine feminine that was doing it. It wasn't
Right.
necessarily women, but it was the divine feminine. It's that cycle of life. We give life, we actually are at the beginning, at the
Yeah.
end. And we understand that it is part of what it means to just, nature, to be connected with nature. So for me, it's really that. It's really creating grief literacy, not from here, not for you to, yes, we need more information, but like to have grief literacy embodied in our bodies so we can open up those places, those container, those spaces where our perspective shifts. And when the perspective shifts, you see how it was kind of like opening a dam, not just like
Mm-hmm.
in a
Mm-hmm.
container of water, like that I'm crying, but it was like I've been feeling this it's not working. I'm just feeling something is like not quite aligned, and then this connection in a good container, in a container that is conducive to creating that spaciousness just shifted perspective, which allow you effortlessly.
Yeah. To flow into the right space and to feel the healing. Did you have ritual, like do you use ritual in a way of grief? Is that something that's a thing for you, or
I do. I just love rituals. I can't, every time I say ritual, my husband's like, "What are you saying?" It's just ritual. It sounds like I'm saying ritual, which is like another podcaster that, but no, ritual. And I think that and when we say there's Melissa Kim Carter, which is she works on the if you haven't listened to that podcast episode,
okay?
people, you actually have to go, and it's the one where she uses fairy tale to really go into the unconscious mind. She's just amazing, and she's coming out with a book, apothecary for the afflicted. So it's like, I just love her work. I'm a big fan of her and her
Yeah, I'll
work.
look it up.
We were having this conversation on the podcast, and um where was I going with this? Oh yes, and she has this quote that says, um, "Ritual without intention is just simply a chore." And I just love this because, you know, we there's so many ways of grieving. There's so many ways of being in this life, obviously, and there's so many ways of celebrating the life. You were mentioning that, like 10 years you're not celebrating our death, but you're celebrating our life. And I've done this every April 23rd of every year. I have a day with my mom. It's me and my mom, nobody else. This year
Mm,
was the first time that I wasn't doing that because I had class and I was held with my wonderful, beautiful group of women that I'm with. So,
which is
or,
another
or
celebration.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so a ritual, just to be a ritual, is like, so creating, like, I always have this is the work that I do. I always have this, you know, you can buy a dress off the rack and it's gonna do the job. You can borrow somebody else's ritual because, or you can go to a seamstress and have a tailored, dress on you.
Yeah, yeah, that's great.
That's it. Anything in between is okay. It really is, like, so when you start to do the grieving process, you may try different types of ritual, different, and then as you move, more about what works for you, and it evolves through times. Like my mom she passed away 15 years ago. What I was doing then is not the same as what I was doing 5 years ago or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
but I like this, and it's always this tempo of cycle. It's like this beat of a drum. It's like this beat of our heart. It's like the it's connecting us to nature and marking those shift in time. So to take a picture of yourself before you actually move from Vancouver, you know, when you're doing things like that, that is marking time, that is underlining, it is a kind of ritual. So we have
Hmm.
ritual in our lives everywhere. We just don't
Hmm.
necessarily know it, right? One thing that I have been doing, you see the flowers behind me. One thing that
Yeah.
Germans love flowers. Like, I've never seen people love flowers so much. Like, there's flowers everywhere on the balconies. The cities are actually putting flowers everywhere. They're changing the flowers during the season. It's like, it's a flower monger
Wow.
country.
How beautiful.
It's yes. And, I used to not buy cut flowers because, I like potted flowers, and we had a big garden in Montreal, right? And my husband used to buy me, like, he would buy me roses, but, like, in a pot, like it was more of and when we came here, we had, you've moved different places, how uprooting yourself and, moving to a new place it takes quite a out of you. There's
Yeah.
demands on every aspects of yourself, of your relationships, like, so it has been such an incredible, challenging journey and yet beautiful. That's why I actually always say beautiful, that I was allowed and I was invited, not allowed, but invited to grieve so many things and so many parts of myself as well, like so many identities of myself that were. So I started, and I didn't know. I was like, oh, like I'll just buy flowers here, and I just buy flowers there, like once in a while. And now I always have two potted, like two bouquet of flowers, one that is in my office, and one that is on my altar where I have like all my stuff where I go to meditate, where I have my mom's ashes, where I have tokens of like different parts of my life that I have. And in the traditions of flower, like when you go to a funeral, there's flowers. The old, when you look at the old burial site, there was always like this little bouquet on the
Yeah,
person who was dying, right?
yeah.
And the belief behind that is that the energy of the flower would help the soul to travel on
Mm,
the side. And I kind of knew it because I actually worked in funeral homes for like 3 years while I was doing my bachelor's degree in biology. So I was, like, but it kind of like left my consciousness. And then when there's one part where one of our module is actually specifically on rituals, and um she brought back, our instructor brought back that significance, and I just sat there and I was like, that is why, since we are in Germany, it's not just that Germany, they love their flowers, but I have never bought so many cut flowers in my entire life. And it became at some point almost a deep-seated need. It's kind of like I was grieving so much, so many parts of my lives that I needed help with the energy of those flowers to kind of like go.
wow.
And when I realized that, I was like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. And whether it actually is true or not, it doesn't matter. Like, this is what the ritual are there for you to find meaning and a rhythm in your own process of grieving or of living, because it could be like
Yeah.
like a you can have ritual that are gratitude ritual, right? So I just love to build in ritual. And when you said like we after you came back, now you're taking more self-care, you're doing more yoga, so you're kind of getting into a routine, yes, but there's also this elevated need is not the word that I want, but there's this elevated call, invitation
Hmm.
to be in presence in those little moments where we're marking intentionally through ritual
Hmm.
what is happening. So that's why I love the quote from Melissa. It's like you're not doing ritual just to do ritual. You're actually like intentionally doing that because they're marking something important to you, not important, like in a
Hmm. Yeah, but it's so interesting you say that because
you.
with the loss of not my identity, but with the loss of my or going into retirement and feeling this kind of loss of purpose or identity, um, I have felt the need to. I have flowers all the time now. It's so funny. We are connected by that little gold thread, by the way. I'm buying flowers all the time right now. I I am meditating more, and it's just like my being knows I need to do that in order to pass through this period, and I guess it's part of what has made me resilient over the years that I innately, I guess, knew these things. Like you said, you didn't know why you were buying flowers, but now you made the connection. And just hearing you speak, I think, wow, I bought a lot of flowers lately. I like to think of it as like I'm buying flowers because I deserve. I can buy myself flowers.
I can buy myself flowers.
But I have always done that. It was just in times, and I just didn't really make the connection till hearing you say it now. Is that I realize I've been buying a lot of flowers lately. Back at yoga, meditating more. there's this inner part of me that knows that's part of my self-care that just has to arise at these times when I'm passing through a loss or a transition period. So, interesting.
I love that
You're a
you're
wise
saying this.
woman. You're a wise woman.
Well, I I love that I'm what we're all that's okay, that is the secret. The work that I do with women, and this is why it's so different. Like it's not évident. It's not the work that I do with women is actually exactly that. We know the way. We
Hmm.
know what their body needs. So when I work with them, it's not like, what should I do? Because they're so used to like external input, external, like, what should I do? What should I do? And then they're like, well, I don't understand. Like, none of those things happen, like, and this is why I created, the gift. It's like, none of what you actually tried worked or really make the difference. And then you're like, it's not working for me. And then you're like, well, it must be because there's no hope, or it must be because I'm broken, or it must be because like it's not working for you because it's not in line with what your body needs,
Hmm.
what your psyche needs. So this whole life midwifery basically is what it is, where we really relearn to listen to the language that we came in with, the divine feminine,
Yeah.
the collective wisdom that we have forgotten how to listen because we're drowning in noise and all kinds
Hmm.
of noise. And there's a reason why because we're disconnected to ourselves, so we cannot connect truly with other people. So then the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of
Hmm.
addiction is actually connection. The reason why
Yeah.
we are addicted to things, it's because we feel that void and we don't know what to do with that void, right? So we're numbing with all these, sex, drug, and rock and roll type of thing, but our body knows the way. And the more that I do this work, the more that I'm having this conversation with you, I just love that you share that, about the flowers, is we know the way. It's just that we're not, for many reasons, we're not recognizing, hearing, listening to what we need because, we think that we're not allowed. We think that we're not worth it. We think that we need to do more, blah, 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 all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to hear the inner voice.
We have to hear the inner voice of wisdom. That's so, yes,
Hmm. Yeah.
we are all wise. We have just not tapped into that wise part
Hmm.
of ourselves for many reasons. And when I say that I struggled with anger for so long, I was having a conversation with somebody, and she was saying, well, I'm in therapy, and my therapist, I didn't know she has like a big background of trauma, a family, like intergenerational thing. And she was going to therapy, um and I'm not saying anything about therapy. I went to therapy. Like that's not, it's one of the tools that, and I love, one
Hmm.
of the work that I love to do is like with a woman that actually goes see the therapist, and then we work on the rest, like this interdisciplinary way
Yeah.
of doing. And, but she was saying, like, I went to the therapist and I was sharing about my anger that I had. And she said, well, the therapist kind of said like, well, that anger is not a very good emotion. And she was like, well,
Wow.
I didn't know, like, just to name the emotion for me was like a big thing, right? Like, and she was like, well, now I'm naming it, and I'm being told, and whether it was actually what the therapist said or what she heard, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
what she received was, I'm finally naming the anger, and now I'm actually stuck with the shame of feeling that anger, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it was, I'm very sensitive to that, because we're either naming what is happening, and when we're doing in spaces that are not conducive to our healing, that are not,
Hmm.
meant to see us, to not judge us, to welcome, to just be a container, not to rush anything, then we're immediately slapped back with the shame, and then we go down, like, we build the wall again. And anger is such a big part of grief in a lot of, like, a lot of ways. And but not all anger is destructive. Like, we can we can see where what is behind the anger, and then use and leverage that message behind it to create a revolution in our life. And that's why I'm actually
Yeah.
saying this, like, grief leads to revolution, and it can, in our own individual life, but also, like, when we look at big transformational movement in societies, they stem from grief and anger of, like, this is where we're stopping, this is where we're saying no more, this is where we're actually, like, being an agent of change. So I always say that happiness is a very, very bad driver for change.
Yes. Well, it's
Yeah.
funny because it is loss and challenges and change that often push us to development, like to personal development, which is so interesting. Um, I guess it's suffering is not such a bad thing if we can use our suffering to create good and to open our mind and to refocus us, or because I think change and loss are inevitable. We just need to find a way to kind of work with it. When
Yeah.
I was thinking of doing this talk with you, there was a quote. I'm just going to see if I can read the quote. When the ego weeps for what we have lost, the spirit rejoices for what it has found. And I thought that was so good. It was something. It's supposed to be a Sufi quotation, but didn't have anybody in particular who it's attributed to.
Okay,
But
so
I
it
thought it
wasn't
was
a Rumi
beautiful.
quote. Yes, it is
No,
beautiful. And this is, I mean, we could open another whole conversation around this, but um, it is so true, because because of our lack mindset, we always focus on what we've lost, what is the destruction, the void, whatever, but not necessarily the like the, those I was gonna say the negative, but, like, I had these negative that we had, like, in pictures
yeah,
once upon a
okay,
time before
yeah,
we were toge
yeah,
but it was like this contrast that we actually, like, when we look at the contrast, there's always, like, the other flip side of it. And it's not to say that everything needs to find meaning, and certainly it doesn't have to. We don't have to make meaning faster than, like, we need to feel what we need to feel. But there is hope, in a sense that there's always another part of what we it makes space for something else. That's basically what I'm saying. It's not just like
yeah,
we've lost and there's, like, a void. It's like this space is can be used for something else. And that's how I actually saw it with my mom, and the void inside, where, okay, I have all this spaciousness. I could continue to look at the void, or I can actually decide, what do I create from there. So thank you so much.
hmm
Send me that quote. I'll actually
I
put it in the
will. I will.
show notes.
Okay.
Oh, well, that was actually a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Mark, for being with me today. Thank you so much for sharing all these beautiful stories, and kind of, like, immortalizing them through the podcast, which is really
hmm
cool.
Yeah. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share that. And it's fun talking with you. It was an easier process than I imagined it would be.
I told you I'm always gentle, but yes,
There we go.
podcasting is, even if it's very widespread now, like, more and more of us are actually going on podcasts and sharing our stories. And I'm actually on a mission to, provide the platform for that as well. But I understand how, I remember the first time I went on a podcast myself, and I was like, what do I, what am I saying here? So,
Yeah.
so thank you so much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, people. You can actually listen to the podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. You can find on YouTube, Walk With Me, the podcast. And I am so happy to be bringing you more of these conversations. I love you so much, so deeply. And don't hesitate to share, comment. I'd love to read your comments and share the podcast with the people that you think that might be benefiting from these conversations. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye.